and text and purport from Bhagavad Gita. So, text 31 of the opulences of the Absolute, chapter 10 of Bhagavad Gita, as it is. Pavatam asmi ram shastra britamaham jasanam makaras chasmi shotasam asmi janavi. Translation: Lord Krishna speaking. Of purifiers, I am the wind. Of the wielders of weapons, I am Ram. Of fishes, I am the shark. And of flowing rivers, I am the Ganges. Original purport by Srila Prabhupada as published in the first 1972 edition of Bhagavad Gita as it is. Purport: of all the aquatics, the shark is one of the biggest and is certainly the most dangerous to man. Thus the shark represents Krishna. And of rivers, the greatest in India is the mother Ganges. Lord Rāmacandra of the Ramayana, an incarnation of Krishna, is the mightiest of warriors. Now, I'm not reading this to create any controversy, but of all the corrective revisions that were made, this is the one I take exception to. Much of this purport was omitted in the revised Bhagavad Gita because it was not in Srila Prabhupada's original first manuscript. However, the process of editing, especially back then, involved sometimes editors asking Prabhupada questions. Prabhupada, the verse talks about Ram or talks about the Ganges. Your short purport does not. And Prabhupada said, in my humble opinion, to add it. Now, why do I say that? He said to add it. I will tell you. In Bombay, now Mumbai, as I said, there was this very, very nice life member whose family for generations had been devotees and worshippers of Sri Sita and Ram. His conception was somewhat logical. Lord Ram appeared in Treta Yuga, way before Lord Krishna in Dwapara Yuga. So therefore, Krishna comes from Ram. Ram came first. So anything after Ram came from Ram. That was his logic. And Srila Prabhupada said, no, no, no. We accept the words of Krishna, the original form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, regardless of when he came in the order of incarnations of God. He is the original Supreme. And he said, I, Krishna, I am Ram. And so the life member said, that is not possible. Krishna can't say he's Ram. So then Prabhupada said, I don't know if it was Gopal Krishna and someone else, Gopal Krishna Maharaj. But Prabhupada said, please get me the Bhagavad Gita. And at that time, this was in 1976, so the Bhagavad Gita was the original first Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada immediately opens to the opulence of the Absolute, immediately opens to text 31, and immediately starts reading the text and then the purport. And then he says to the like, here it is, right in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, I am Ram. The life member had to concede. Okay, Krishna's the source of everything, including the source of Ram. So that's a very nice pastime where Srila Prabhupada's perfect, not just realization, but his perfect memory, immediately in the middle of this conversation, he goes right to the exact text and purport to prove to the life member that Lord Rāmacandra comes from Krishna. So whatever the editors might have thought later, we have this tape conversation and transcript where Prabhupada is asserting from Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, I am Lord Rāmacandra. So I go by that. And I just thought you would like to know that's a very nice room conversation pastime with Prabhupada, where a life member conceded, yes, Krishna is the source of everything, even Rāma. So, thank you for indulging me in telling that little true Prabhupada story. Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janna Pallava Girivaradari. Gopi Janna Pallava Girivaradari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janna Pallava Girivaradari. Gopi Janna Pallava Girivaradari. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janna Pallava Girivaradari. Gopi Janna Pallava Girivaradari. Yashodanandana Vrajatanaranjana Yashodanandana Vrajatanaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Raghupati Raghava Rajaram Patita Pavana Sitaram Raghupati Raghava Rajaram Patita Pavana Sitaram Sitaram Jaya Sitaram Sitaram Jaya Sitaram Sitaram Jaya Sitaram Sitaram Jaya Sitaram Raghupati Raghava Rajaram Patita Pavana Sitaram Sitaram Jaya Sitaram Sitaram Jaya Sitaram Jayam Vishnupad Paramhansa Paravaj Kacharya Sutara Sata Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai BBT Founder Acharya ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Nam Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Shikaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Sri Radha Krishna Gopinatha Shamkunda Radha Kunda Gira Govardhan Ki Jai Sri Sri Sitaram Ki Jai Sri Sri Sitaram Ki Jai Sri Sri Sitaram Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Srimati Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai, Transcendental Sankirtan Yajna Ki Jai, Gauda Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to you, Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much, Srila Prabhupada. Srimati Bhaktivedanta Samriti in harmony. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pachanane Nivase Shrindavani Paschatete Satarane. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today, just for today, we're temporarily leaving the second canto. And we're jumping to the 9th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 10, titled The Pastimes of Lord Rāmacandra, text number 50. Agrahīd, āsanam, bhrātrā, praṇipatya, prasāditaḥ, prajāḥ, sva-dharma-niratā, varṇāśrama-guṇānvitāḥ, jugopa, pitṛ-vat, rāmo, menire, pitaram, tam, agrahīd, āsanam, bhrātrā, praṇipatya, prasāditaḥ, prajāḥ sva-dharma-niratā, varṇāśrama-guṇānvitāḥ, jugopa, pitṛ-vat, rāmo, menire, pitaram, agrahīd, āsanam, bhrātrā, praṇipatya, prasāditaḥ, prajāḥ sva-dharma-niratā, varṇāśrama-guṇānvitāḥ, jugopa, pitṛ-vat, rāmo, menire, pitaram, praṇipatya, prasāditaḥ, prajāḥ sva-dharma-niratā, varṇāśrama-guṇānvitāḥ, jugopa, pitṛ-vat, rāmo, menire, pitaram, agrahīd, āsanam, bhrātrā, praṇipatya, prasāditaḥ, prajāḥ sva-dharma-niratā, varṇāśrama-guṇānvitāḥ, jugopa, pitṛ-vat, rāmo, menire, pitaram, agrahīd, āsanam, bhrātrā, praṇipatya, prasāditaḥ, prajāḥ sva-dharma-niratā, varṇāśrama-guṇānvitāḥ, jugopa, pitṛ-vat, rāmo, menire, pitaram, agrahīd, āsanam, bhrātrā, praṇipatya, prasāditaḥ, prajāḥ sva-dharma-niratā, varṇāśrama-guṇānvitāḥ, jugopa, pitṛ-vat, rāmo, menire, pitaram, Manajis. agrahīd āsanam bhrātrā praṇipatya prasāditaḥ prajāḥ sva-dharma-niratā varṇāśrama guṇa-anvitāḥ jugopa pitṛ-vat rāmo menire pitaram chatam agrahīd āsanam bhrātrā praṇipatya prasāditaḥ prajāḥ sva-dharma-niratā varṇāśrama-guṇānvitāḥ jugopa pitṛ-vat rāmo menire pitaram chatam. Word meanings. Agrahīt, accepted. Āsanam, the throne of the state. Bhrātrā, by his brother Bharata. Praṇipatya, after fully surrendering unto him. Prasāditaḥ, having been pleased. Prajāḥ, and the citizens. Sva-dharma-niratā, fully engaged in their respective occupational duties. Varṇāśrama, according to the system of varna and āśrama. Guṇa-anvitāḥ, all of them being qualified in that process. Jugopa, the Lord protected them. Pitṛ-vat, exactly like a father. Rāmo, Lord Rāmacandra. Menire, they considered. Pitaram, exactly like a father. Cha, also. Tam, him, Lord Rāmacandra. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Being pleased by the full surrender and submission of Lord Bharata, Lord Rāmacandra then accepted the throne of the state. He cared for the citizens exactly like a father. And the citizens, being fully engaged in their occupational duties of varna and āśrama, accepted him as their father. Please repeat. Being pleased by the full surrender and submission of Lord Bharata. Just a quick note. Prabhupada writes Lord Bharata because he's Vishnu Tattva. He descended with Lord Ram. He's not a Jiva Tattva. His brother is Vishnu Tattva. So, and submission of Lord Bharata. Lord Rāmacandra then accepted the throne of the state. He cared for the citizens exactly like a father. And the citizens, being fully engaged in their occupational duties of varna and āśrama, accepted him as their father. Purport. People are very fond of the pattern of Rama-Raj. And even today, politicians sometimes form a party called Ram-Raj. But unfortunately, they have no obedience to Lord Ram. It is sometimes said that people want the kingdom of God without God. Such an aspiration, however, is never to be fulfilled. Good government can exist when the relationship between the citizens and their government is like that exemplified by Lord Rāmacandra and his citizens. Lord Rāmacandra ruled his kingdom exactly as a father takes care of his children. And the citizens, being obliged to the good government of Lord Rāmacandra, accepted the Lord as their father. Thus, the relationship between the citizens and the government should be exactly like that between father and son. When the sons in a family are well trained, they are obedient to the father and mother. And when the father is well qualified, he takes good care of the children. As indicated here by the words sva-dharma-niratā, varṇāśrama-guṇānvitāḥ, the people were good citizens because they accepted the institution of varna and āśrama, which arranges society in the varna divisions of Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, and the ashram divisions of brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas. This is actual human civilization. I'm just going to pause here for one moment. The varṇāśrama system became perverted over thousands of years of perversion into a caste system, a hereditary system, not by qualification, but just by birth. In Prabhupada's classes and lectures in Bhagavad Gita, I have heard him say repeatedly that the entire purpose of organizing human civilization is not to stigmatize someone is in this varna or someone is in this ashram. Someone is a male, someone is a female. No, that's not the purpose of the organization of human society. Rather, the purpose is that every single human be guided to understand and realize his or her constitutional nature, constitutional position, that we are not matter, we are consciousness. We are a living force within a body. That's the purpose behind varṇāśrama. And any other bodily concept purpose is an unfortunate perversion. We have to be careful about this because we have different ashrams and varnas within our ISKCON. But we can't forget that everyone in ISKCON is a Vaishnava and Vaishnavi, dedicated to understanding their constitutional position as God's servant. And with that vision, we see everyone equally. While we respect the different positions in varna and ashram, we have to see beyond that. Everyone is striving to be Vaishnava and Vaishnavi, to become constitutionally awakened, that they are, every one of us, simply a servant of God. In that sense, we must develop equal vision. Vision to see everyone equally, or we're not even Brahmins. You can't even say there's Brahminical culture if we don't develop that vision of equality of the soul. So we'll continue. This is actual human civilization. People must be trained according to the different varṇāśrama occupational duties, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, verse 13. Chaturvanyam maya shrishtam guna-karma vibhagashah. The four varnas must be established according to varying qualities of work. So that way we just know what our devotional service is. That's all it means. We're not judging, oh, someone is a Sudra. What? Sudra is artist. Prabhupada elevated artists to the highest position of creating windows into the spiritual world. But it was their duty, and technically, artisans are Sudras. We don't look down at them. It's just by the bodily nature and the mind's nature, we have different tasks of how to serve Krishna. But everyone is united in serving Krishna. And that's the true varṇāśrama system. The first principle for good government is that it must institute this varṇāśrama system. And again, that means instituting a varṇāśrama system begins with the government completely dedicating themselves to the service of God and guiding everyone in the kingdom or the state or the country into being a servant of God. With that foundational principle, they can organize their society into varnas and ashrams. If they leave that out, it's a perversion. So we must always remember that. That's the principle behind varna and ashram. We're all serving God in different ways, but service to God is never looked down on or graded. It's with equal vision. We are all humble, wonderful servants of God. All right, the next sentence. The purpose of varṇāśrama is to enable people to become God conscious. Varṇāśrama-guṇānvitāḥ purushena parak puman vishnur arajyate. The entire varṇāśrama scheme is intended to enable people to become Vaishnavas. Vishnurasya devata. When people worship Lord Vishnu as the Supreme Lord, they become Vaishnavas. Thus, people should be trained to become Vaishnavas through the system of varna and āśrama as they were during the reign of Lord Rāmacandra, when everyone was fully trained to follow the varṇāśrama system. Simply enforcing laws and ordinances can never make the citizens obedient and lawful. That is impossible. Throughout the entire world, there are so many states, legislative assemblies, and parliaments, but still, and only Prabhupada could say this, the citizens are all rogues and thieves. Good citizenship, therefore, cannot be enforced. The citizens must be trained serving and worshiping God. As there are schools and colleges to train students to become chemical engineers, lawyers, or specialists in many other departments of knowledge, there must be schools and colleges to train students to become brahmanas, kshatriyas, vaishyas, shudras, brahmacharis, grihastas, vanaprasthas, and sannyasis. Now, this has nothing to do with where you took birth. If you get the right education, you can be a doctor from India, you can be a doctor from Europe, you can be a doctor from America, you can be a doctor from Africa. That training has nothing to do with where you were born or what family you were born into. So that's a simple example that Prabhupada often gives, that do not think varṇāśrama system is based on where you're born or which family line you're born into necessarily. We all have to be trained from the very beginning that each varna is for serving God and pleasing God. Each ashram is for serving God and pleasing God. The ashrams are not so that a higher ashram can lord it over a different so-called lower ashram. That's not pure varnashram. That's a perversion. Similarly, with varnas, The system is not designed so Brahmins just lord it over everyone. That's also a perversion. And I'll just stretch this a little more. Our system does not teach men that you're the lords of women, you can do whatever you want to women. That's not our system. If it was, we would be no better than the Dark Ages or the medieval times. We'd be no better than what's going on in Afghanistan with the Taliban, or in Iran by the fanatics. That's not our system. Our system trains every man to see a young woman as his daughter and an adult woman as his mother. And I say this on behalf of all the women, all the mothers. Not one of us in this room would even be here today without a mother. So you can never abuse women when you owe everything to your mother. So that's what we teach as well. The pure system between men and women, husband and wife, not any perverted system of false proprietorship and unfortunate abuse. Never accepted. So, I'm jumping. Generally speaking, if the king or president is Rajarshi, the relationship between the citizens and the chief executive will be clear. And there will be no possibility of disruptions in the state because the number of thieves and rogues will decrease. What makes you a thief or a rogue? Well, our simple philosophy is everything is the property of God. And when you try to seize God's property for your own purpose, that's the definition of a thief. You're taking someone else's property in any form, whether it's wealth, wife, or position, that makes you a thief, and a thief is a rogue. It's so clear from our philosophy why Prabhupada can say, without this training, that everything belongs to God. So Prabhupada once told me, Sri Ishopanishad is the greatest book for introducing God realization because it begins with this absolute truth statement that everything comes from God and is His property. And as long as that's taught in schools and by leaders of varṇa, by leaders of ashrams, by leaders of the state, you have a perfect society. Now, at the present time in Kali Yuga, we can't imagine a perfect society. But Lord Rāmacandra, the incarnations of God appear for different purposes. The appearance of God in the form of Lord Ram is to actually show for all time that in the human world there can be a perfect government and a perfect citizenry and a perfect society. I just want to read, now, because Lord Ram is also the last manifestation of God in Haridam, or in the Vaikuntha Lokas, just before Dwarka and Mathura and Vrindavan. There's some readings that I would like to share with you. The nature of readings is that sometimes we get drowsy. And I'm humbly requesting anyone who just even feels themselves getting drowsy, very simple, just stand up. I promise you, it will help you to stay awake. And if you're drowsy and sitting, that you might actually temporarily fall asleep. So please, if you're feeling drowsy, because there's going to be some readings now, from a level of realization that is actually not even possible for humans to have unless they're pure devotees. So please, don't miss those readings by falling asleep. Stand up, please. So this purport, next purport, just talks about among the four yugas, Satya, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali. The Kali Yuga is the worst. Well, we knew that. But if the process of varṇāśrama dharma is introduced, even in this age of Kali, the situation of Satya Yuga can be invoked. That's what happened when Lord Rāmacandra appeared in the Treta Yuga. The whole universe reverted to Satya Yuga during his appearance. The seasons, the constellations, the influences of the stars and moon, the way the rivers flowed and produced things, the way jewels were produced, the way food, the way flowers, birds of all singing the glories of God. Everything became almost like a Vaikuntha Loka, but certainly by the miraculous potencies of Lord Ram, that Treta Yuga turned into full Satya Yuga during his reign. It's quite amazing just to consider that, because nothing that we can imagine reverts time to a different prior yuga, but that's what happened when Lord Ram walked this earth. So, O Maharaj Parikshit, best of the Bharata dynasty, during the reign of Lord Ramacandra, the forests, the rivers, the hills, the mountains, the states, the 7 islands, and the 7 seas were all favorable in supplying the necessities of life for all living beings. When Lord Ramacandra, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, was the king of the world, all, this is amazing, all bodily and all mental sufferings, all diseases, all old age, all bereavements, lamentations, distresses, all fears, and all fatigues were completely absent. We can't imagine. Old age was absent. Disease was absent throughout the whole human society. No one aged. No one ever felt anxiety about anything. This last sentence of the text is beyond my comprehension. There was even no death for those who did not want it. So Lord Ramacandra did not appear only to introduce the perfect human government, human organization of varna and āśrama. He simultaneously brought down the Vaikuntha world and all the humans in his kingdom as if they were suddenly promoted to Vaikuntha. No disease, no old age, not even death. This is extraordinary. So when people, thousands of a million years later, invoke Raja Ram, they have no idea what they're actually invoking. You can't just invoke that the Vaikuntha Loka appear on the earth. But that's what happened when Lord Ramacandra ruled. It was just like we were living, the humans were, and the animals, and the rivers and mountains, and the plants and trees, and the flowering bushes, it was, and the birds. It was just like everyone was suddenly living in the Vaikuntha Loka here on earth. Now that stretches our mind to a limit. Really amazing. But now, we're going to stretch our minds even beyond that. Just bear with me while I find it. I'm just going to read a few verses from the amazing transcendental literature called Srimad Bhagavatam. It was written by Sanatana Goswami. And who is Sanatana Goswami? He's one of the gopis, one of the expansions of Krishna's pleasure potencies appearing on earth. He knows everything. So now he's going to describe the amazing opulences and lifestyle inside the Vaikuntha worlds, up to the level of the last Vaikuntha world where Sita and Ram appear, where God appears in his two-arm form rather than his four-arm form. So I'll just read a few select sections from this Srimad Bhagavatam. You may be interested to know, in the main temple of the Vedic Planetarium, not the West Wing Science Museum, there are 3 galleries, levels of galleries for art exhibits. The first level, just in the immediate circumference in the main dome of the chandelier and Radhamadava, those exhibits are going to present Mahavishnu creating millions of universes, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu entering into one of them and giving birth to Brahma, Brahma being endowed with creative potencies, creating this universe and teaching the purpose behind the creation of a universe all through the cyclic line to Srila Prabhupada. Once you get to the second and third levels, they go beyond just the circumference of the main temple. They start in the main temple and go all the way around through the Nrsimha temple and then back again. And then the third level, same thing, all the way around the main temple and the Nrsimhadev temple and then back again. On those 2 top levels, where there's more exhibit space than anywhere else, the entire story presented by Sanatana Goswami in his Srimad Bhagavatam is going to be presented to visitors through unbelievable dioramas. That's the plan. So, even if you haven't read it, just stay alive for another 10 years, and you'll just be able to walk around and pictures worth 1,000 words. You'll be able to experience the Srimad Bhagavatam through your eyes. All right, so let me see if I can find just a few select amazing verses or statements from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Just bear with me. In the Vaikuntha planets, the inhabitants, this is first from the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is before we even get to the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is right from our 3rd canto. In the Vaikuntha planets, the inhabitants fly in their airplanes, accompanied by their wives and consorts, and eternally sing of the character and activities of the Lord, which are always devoid of anything inauspicious. While singing the glories of the Lord, they deride even the presence of any sensory pleasure in the world. The inhabitants of Vaikuntha travel in their airplanes made of lapis lazuli, emerald, and gold. These are not airplanes made out of aluminum and fiberglass and steel. Solid gold, solid emerald, solid lapis lazuli, amazing airplanes. Although crowded by their consorts, the male inhabitants cannot be stimulated by any passion by the mirth and beautiful charms of their consorts and wives. The ladies in the Vaikuntha planets are as beautiful as the goddess of fortune herself. Such transcendently beautiful ladies their hands playing with lotuses and their leg bangles tinkling, are sometimes seen sweeping the marble floors and walls, which are bedecked at intervals with gold borders in order to receive the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's from our Bhagavatam. Now, I'm jumping now to the Bhagavatam. And again, if you feel your eyes closing, please just stand up. It's much better to stand up and stay alert than to miss this. No one will object if you're blocking their view, if you stand because you need to. Okay, so, Bhagavatam. The city that Gopakumar was allowed to travel to, the city here is Vaikuntha. And the personal residents were all of Vaikuntha. And he saw them. They were on a transcendental airplane that was rich with the opulences of hundreds of universes. Sanatana Goswami starts using descriptions that defy the capacity of our mind. Airplanes that were more opulent than all the opulences of hundreds of universes combined. That's just the airplanes of Vaikuntha. This is astonishing. Singing wonderful songs and glorifying the Lord in many ways. He was filled with happiness. He was talking about one of the Vaikuntha residents that he mistook for Lord Narayan. Of course, he mistook him for Lord Narayan because he looked identical to Lord Narayan. That's another feature of being in Vaikuntha. You look identical to the goddess of fortune or Lord Narayan. How amazing is that? In an eternal, gorgeous body, spiritual body, filled with endless bliss, filled with endless desire to serve. We don't even know what the word endless means. It means it never ends, and it keeps increasing. Even though there's no time in the Vaikuntha world, just conceptually by a human sense, at every moment, the bliss increases. At every moment, the handsomeness increases, because that's pleasing to Lakshmi Narayan. At every moment, the beauty of the ladies increases, because that's pleasing to Lakshmi and Narayan. At every moment, the desires and the abilities to render different services increases and never stops increasing. There is infinite, endless, greater abilities, greater beauties, greater manifestation of opulences just within the residence. That's why this is beyond the mind. No human can imagine we can't imagine infinity and ever increasing, going together. But that's how the Vaikuntha world is being described. That's where Lord Ram comes from. That's what he manifested 1,000,000 years ago when he walked this earth. Seeing him, I thought he must be the Lord of all the universes. Entering his own city, he mistook a regular resident of Vaikuntha to be the Supreme Lord. Such was his opulence, emanating, his luminous effulgence emanating from him was as great as millions of suns and moons. Just a person in Vaikuntha was that luminous. That's what the spiritual bodies in Vaikuntha are like. Can't imagine. We can't even look at the sun without being blinded. We can't imagine the brightness of millions of suns all at once emanating from the body of a Vaikuntha resident. How can we imagine that? But that's what exists in the Vaikuntha worlds, in all of them. We should never think, oh, I want to go to Krishna Loka, not Vaikuntha. I don't even want to talk about anyone who thinks in those ways. We just want to go back home, back to Godhead. And wherever our constitutional nature is best suited for serving and pleasing God, can't think of anything else. If it's this Vaikuntha world or the world of Sitaram or the world of Dwarka, whatever, wherever it is, we don't make, there's no judging. There's no conception like that in the spiritual world. So we need to be careful in our own readings and thinking about going back to Godhead, to not make that mistake. You know, many, many years ago, 1970s, there was a group of devotees in New Dwarka, Los Angeles, and they believed, well, if we just read amongst ourselves from the Krishna book and from the Nectar of Devotion about the servitors of God in Madhurya Ras, the gopis, if we just keep hearing that and nothing else, then at the time of death our consciousness will be thinking about that and we'll go there and so on. And we don't want to go anywhere else. This was brought to Prabhupada's attention. We had nicknamed it the Gopi Bhava Club. And many serious devotees were in this club until Prabhupada completely pulled the plug on that club and explained to them, you cannot will yourself to be a gopi. That is an absurdity. That is a quality of your ignorance and false ego that you think you'll create what your rasa is. Not what it already is, but you'll create it to be that you don't have that power. And that's how Prabhupada pulled that plug. Every now and then it creeps in again to our ISKCON. And every now and then we need to remember how Prabhupada pulled the plug on it. We don't dictate to God what our rasa is going to be. We have a constitutional nature which none of us have, I shouldn't say none of you, which I have not realized yet. I have not seen my own constitutional original rasa from my soul towards God. So until I am self-realized, I'm not going to talk about which rasa I want to be in. That's an absurdity. I don't even know what rasa I'm constitutionally meant for. That comes first. And until you have that realization, don't try to force yourself into some other rasa. That will never work. And you'll remain in the bodily concept. You'll remain under false ego, a material quality, born of tamagun. So, I'll just read one more section. Oh, I've run out of time. There are sections in this that I was going to read that describe the opulences in such a way that they defy the intelligence and mind of any human to comprehend. It actually says that. So you'll just have to wait to read it yourself in the Srimad Bhagavatam. But let's pause now to see if any comments or any questions about our Lord Rāmacandra and Sita Devi coming in the human form to illustrate how to perfectly organize human society so that even if it's in the Kali Yuga, if we can follow what they did, within the Kali Yuga, for these 10,000 years, it could become Satya Yuga. Prabhupada wrote that in the 3rd canto purports. It could even, our movement could bring about on this earth a short period of Satya Yuga. if we just follow this. Okay, so
Hare Krishna.
we just need to move the microphone. Oh, yes.
Prabhu, could you give us the reference of those sections which you were planning to read?
I'll have to do that offline
Okay.
because I have to look. I just photocopied pages in my phone because I didn't bring the volume. I'm sorry, but I'll show you. Yeah, just run around with the mic to whoever has their hand up, okay? Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much for not being so prejudiced towards Lord Ram. Normally, I'm accustomed to seeing Western devotees being a little bit more prejudiced towards Ram.
Prejudice towards Lord, towards God.
I really appreciate.
First of all, that's an inconceivable statement.
Thank you so much.
Please get past that statement.
Okay, so I have want to share this comment which is illustrated by Srila Prabhupada. I always wonder why in Srimad Bhagavatam there is very small section about Lord Ram, and yesterday I got the answer that there are actually 100 crore verses in the higher planetary system, 100 crore verses on Lord Ram in Ramayana. And then they were divided into 3 planetary systems. So here we got 24,000 at the moment in Ramayana, and Bhagavatam has 18,000. So the point I'm actually trying to make is that Srila Prabhupada mentions, and there is a verse in Srimad Bhagavatam which I can share later.
Manaji, I just have to interrupt you for just 1 second. The Srimad Bhagavad Purana is not the Ramayana. The Srimad Bhagavatam explains the history of God creating universes and everything that happens within a universe leading up to when Krishna appears and then Kalki appears and so on. And early on in the Srimad Bhagavatam first canto, it is said that there are so many incarnations of the Supreme Lord inside a universe that they are as countless as the waves in an ocean. Then the list of the incarnations is given in the second canto. Of course, Lord Ram is very prominently mentioned there. Then in the 9th canto, there's multiple chapters about just Lord Rāmacandra. He is not slighted or in any way minimized. But there's so many incarnations, and the Bhagavatam is meant to describe them, the prominent ones, in 1 or 2 chapters per incarnation, except for Krishna. So that's the understanding. And there is plenty of information in the Bhagavatam about Lord Ram. There really is. So
Parikshit Maharaj actually...
If you have a question, though...
no, I just wanted to share this comment by Srila Prabhupada also, if you don't mind. So Parikshit Maharaj mentions that because this is already known to you, the reason, and then Srila Prabhupada illustrates, is that in the evenings, everybody would get together, perform drama, and talk about all this wonderful pastime. That's why this was known. So
yes, it was. Does anyone have a question, though? Thank you for that comment, Manaji. Thank you. Anyone have a question? Yes, please.
Thank you for this class.
We have a few moments left.
On Lord Ramacandra and the ideal king, the ideal son, the ideal husband, the ideal father that he was. And
yeah, imagine thinking that the head of your government is your father, and and you can feel he loves you just like a father. Imagine. Well, we can't imagine because no such thing has existed in this Kali Yuga yet.
And your point about how we can bring about that golden age, that Satya Yuga, even though this is Kali Yuga, will require a lot of training at so many different levels. Leaders, teachers, parents, children, husbands, wives, mothers, fathers, at all levels we need the training. So do you have any vision or a strategy to bring about something in this Krishna consciousness movement to attract the world?
My advice on this question would be, we continue to study Prabhupada's teachings, and we consider to have great patience we can't force the future into this time. But this future, as hard it is to imagine because we all have free will, this future is also preordained. There will be a golden age brought about by the Hare Krishna movement in this Kali Yuga. That is preordained. If we just remain faithful to our vows and our studying and behavior, generation after generation, I mean, we're only into what, the second generation of devotees? From Prabhupada being the founder of Acharya and planting the tree of bhakti that covers the whole earth. And I think I said this in an earlier class. You can't imagine what's going to happen 500 years from today. But probably, this is my speculation, 500 years from today, the citizens of the world will be clamoring for God-conscious leaders of their states. And gradually, Prabhupada predicted, there will be again one world government of a Krishna-conscious leader guided by Krishna-conscious Brahmins. That day is coming. So if it takes 500 years, who cares? And then it'll last for 10,000 years or 9,000 years. Our concepts of time are just bodily. Oh, we want everything happening right away in our lifetime. Well, we don't ever end. Just as Lord Krishna said in Bhagavad Gita, never was there a time when you didn't exist, and never will there be any time when you cease to exist. You never end. So we have to learn to think in those concepts of infinite existence, eternal existence, not just always anxious. It has to happen while I'm still in this body. We do the best we can, but it is, we have our free will, but this is the preordained promise from Prabhupada that that is the future of this earth. There will be a golden age within this 10,000 years. And thus Sita Ram's kingdom will be reestablished because he came again as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The same Lord that is Lord Ram is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Of course, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the original, but apart from that, that same Lord Ram has come in this age as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to usher in the yajna that will bring all of that about, the chanting of the holy names.
Hari
Thank
Bol.
you. Hari
Thank
Hari
you.
Bol. One last question? We're really running late, so I hope it's a short question.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you.
The only reason I'm going a little later
Hare
is
Krishna.
we don't have to take a break for prasadam. Because we can't honor prasadam until after the fast, which is half-day fast. Okay.
Hare Krishna, thank you. So Prabhupada, I have a question about varṇāśrama dharma. Because we know Srila Prabhupada said it should be established again. And also we know him commenting on, for example, on communism, because communism supposedly has like all people equal, and the working class is very prominent. And but the fact is, he said like, but look, there is people cleaning the street, people in the military. So again, it's unavoidable. Varṇāśrama dharma is like a natural order of society. It's
well,
natural.
it's natural, but it's perverted. Right now, it's completely perverted, where everyone wants to be the Lord over everyone else, or over the material energy, or the material land, or material wealth. That perversion completely spoils the natural tendencies for varna and āśrama. It perverts it and entraps us in the bodily concepts of life. So that's no good. The fact that it exists naturally in a perverted state we have to try to see how are we going to create a purified state. And that can happen when we see everyone in a varna as a servant of God. There is no higher and lower in that sense. Everyone in an ashram is a servant of God. And in that sense, there's no higher and lower. There's just, we're all servants. That's our constitutional position. That's our constitutional consciousness. And until we're self-realized, soul-realized, until we see ourselves as pure consciousness, with the only instinct, serving God, we're still in the bodily concept. We have to try to get out of this bodily concept. So that's the stage of the Krishna consciousness movement that we're currently in. But just keep going, keep chanting, keep practicing, keep studying. We will, even if you have to take another birth, you'll be much more advanced because you'll begin where you left off. How wonderful will that be? You don't lose. All the work you've done in this life, it's never going to be lost. We begin in our next life where we left off. We'll be that much more advanced. We'll be that much more enthusiastic to serve. We'll be that much more progressed on the path of self-realization. Maybe just take one more life and we'll be fully self-realized. Maybe you can do it in this life, but that's how we have to think. Thank you.
There is a, can I ask one more?
Okay.
Okay. So I remember from, I cannot refer exactly from where, but I heard Srila Prabhupada said that ISKCON is meant to establish a Brahminical class of men, an intellectual cream. But you said that we also have some kind of varṇāśrama within our ISKCON. But we know that, like for example, Kshatriyas are allowed to do some things that other varnas are not allowed, and so on. So, can you please tell us, like...
Let me just give you a quick Prabhupada story, and that's it for the questions, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Prabhupada and I were once talking about, again, the future of our movement in the Kali Yuga. And he brought up that there will be a time when the economies of these perverted countries and perverted states collapses. There will be an economic collapse at some point in this Kali Yuga. And when that happens, millions of people over centuries that have been dragged and drawn into these horrible cities. I say horrible because I could spend a whole class explaining what's horrible about the Kali Yuga cities. But let's get past that. People, millions, by the millions, they've left the countryside and gone into the cities. And at one point, there will be economic turmoil, and there will be droughts, and there will be famines. And Prabhupada said at that point in time, our movement will have many farms, much more than we have right now. So you can't say based on what we have now. But whenever that future comes, we will have so many hundreds and thousands of farms. And all the people from the cities, by the millions, Prabhupada said, are going to come to our farms. Otherwise, they'll die. They'll just come just to find food and water and shelter. So I said, but Prabhupada, the people in the cities, they're like worse than dogs, hogs, camels, and asses. They're practically cannibals. They're flesh eaters. And you're saying millions and millions of flesh eaters are going to come to our farms and we have to take them in? Oh, yes. Prabhupada liked to say to me, oh, yes. And I said, well, then what do we do with them? We'll give them a section. Even though there's millions of them, we're going to have so many farms. We will teach them, if you want to continue flesh eating, and we will teach them gradually. Your life first we're going to engage you in farming, otherwise you can't stay. So we'll automatically engage them as like Vaishyas or Shudras. Serving God. And if you insist on this addiction, which gradually will go away with generation after generation of being on our farms, we will have a system by which, according to strict Vedic culture, certain times to certain devas you can offer meat. We will actually have that as one section of our Hare Krishna movement farms of the future. And I was astonished. They said, what are you going to do? They're all meat eaters. You have to convert them. You don't just immediately turn them into purified devotees. It's a gradual process. You have to be like the Father. Take them in and gradually, through the generations, engage them, and so they start getting the taste of serving God, and gradually purify them of their bad habits. We can't imagine that being like the GBC of the future. They're going to have to organize that. But that's what's going to have to happen to the future GBCs of our movement. Can't imagine such a duty, but it will, for them at that point in history, it'll just be obvious, natural, and they'll be empowered to handle it. So that's one glimpse of a very unusual future that Prabhupada said is all part of the whole world becoming Krishna conscious. Amazing. We have to stop, but you can ask anything private. Thank you all for the glorification of Sri Sri Sita and Ram ki Jai.
Jai Sitaram.
Hari Bol.